Sarah Mitchell's heart pounded against her ribs as she raced through the marble corridors of the Golden Gate Plaza, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The evening cleaning crew had already begun their rounds, and the setting sun cast long shadows through the towering glass windows. Behind her, she could hear her stepfather's angry voice echoing off the walls, accompanied by the heavy footsteps of the private security team he'd hired to ensure she went through with this arranged marriage. "You can't run forever, Sarah." His words sent chills down her spine. "Think about your daughter's future." Her 5-year-old Emma was exactly why she was running. Sarah refused to let her daughter grow up watching her mother trapped in a loveless marriage to Marcus Henderson, her stepfather's aging business partner, who'd offered to clear all of their family's debts in exchange for her hand in marriage. The security team was closing in. Sarah ducked into a side corridor, her waitress uniform still on from her double shift at the diner. Her tips for the day, a measly $43, crumpled in her pocket. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, unlike her stepfather's schemes that had landed them in crushing debt. The corridor led to the building's west wing, where several tech startups had their offices. Sarah's mind raced as she searched for an escape route. The main exits would be covered by now. She needed another way out, somewhere they wouldn't expect her to go. That's when she spotted him, a tall figure in a security uniform standing by the emergency exit. His broad shoulders blocked her only remaining escape route. Sarah's mind whirled with desperate options. She could try to reason with him, but there was no time. The other guards were getting closer. In that split second, Sarah made a decision that would change her life forever. Drawing upon every romantic comedy she'd ever watched, she rushed toward the guard, her eyes welling with genuine tears. "Please," she whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "help me." Before he could respond, she threw her arms around his neck and pressed her lips against his. It was a desperate move, born of panic and too many late-night movies. She hoped it would startle him enough to create a distraction. The guard stiffened in surprise, but what happened next defied all her expectations. Instead of pushing her away, his strong arms wrapped around her protectively, and he kissed her back with surprising gentleness. For a moment the world stood still, and Sarah forgot she was running for her life. The spell was broken by approaching footsteps. The guard pulled away first, his dark eyes intense as they studied her face. Without a word, he reached behind him and pushed open the emergency exit door. But instead of leading to the street as Sarah had expected, it opened into a private elevator. "In here," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "Quickly." Sarah hesitated for a split second, but the sound of her stepfather's voice growing closer made the decision for her. She darted into the elevator, and the guard followed, swiping a keycard that sent them ascending to the top floor. As the elevator climbed, Sarah finally got a good look at her unexpected ally. He wasn't wearing a regular security uniform, as she'd first thought. His suit was perfectly tailored, and the badge on his lapel bore the logo of Nexus Technologies, one of the largest tech companies in the city. "I'm Sarah," she managed to say, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "And I'm so sorry about that." The guard's lips curved into a subtle smile. "Adrian," he replied simply, though something in his expression suggested he was holding back more information. "Want to tell me why you're running from Theodore Wagner's security team?" Sarah's blood ran cold. How did he know her stepfather's name? Before she could answer, the elevator doors opened to reveal a stunning penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A massive desk dominated one end of the room, and on its surface Sarah spotted a nameplate that made her heart stop. Adrian Blackwood, CEO, Nexus Technologies. She had just forcefully kissed one of the most powerful men in the city. The color drained from Sarah's face as Adrian walked past her to his desk, loosening his tie. "Now," he said, turning to face her with an unreadable expression, "why don't you start from the beginning?" Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped the back of the leather chair in front of Adrian's desk. The entire city sparkled below them, reminding her of just how far she'd climbed, literally and figuratively, in her desperate escape attempt. "My stepfather," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "is trying to force me to marry his business partner, Marcus Henderson." The name felt like poison on her tongue. "Marcus offered to clear my stepfather's gambling debts in exchange for me." Adrian's expression darkened. "Marcus Henderson? The real estate developer?" Sarah nodded, surprised by the recognition. "You know him?" "Unfortunately." Adrian's jaw tightened. His company tried to acquire this building last year through some rather questionable methods. We caught them attempting to manipulate property values in the area. He studied Sarah's face carefully. How old is Henderson? 57, Sarah replied, wrapping her arms around herself. I'm 26. Adrian muttered something under his breath that sounded like a curse. And you have a daughter. At Sarah's startled look, he added, I heard your stepfather mention her. Emma. She's 5. Sarah pulled out her phone, showing him a photo of a little girl with wild, curly hair and her mother's green eyes. Her father left before she was born. I've raised her on my own, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. But my stepfather, she swallowed hard. He's using Emma's future as leverage, says this marriage would guarantee her education, her security, at the cost of your freedom. Adrian's voice was soft but carried an undercurrent of anger. A knock at the office door made them both freeze. Mr. Blackwood, a security guard's voice called through the door. Mr. Wagner's team is requesting access to this floor. They say they're looking for his stepdaughter. Adrian held Sarah's gaze as he pressed the intercom button. Deny access. In fact, escort Mr. Wagner and his entire team out of the building. If they resist, call the police. Relief flooded Sarah's body, making her knees weak. She sank into the chair, fighting back tears. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Adrian walked around his desk and leaned against it, close enough that Sarah could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Your stepfather won't give up easily, especially with Henderson's money backing him. Do you have somewhere safe to go? Sarah's silence was answer enough. Adrian ran a hand through his dark hair, a surprisingly human gesture that contrasted with his powerful CEO persona. I have a proposition for you, Sarah. One that doesn't involve selling yourself into marriage. She tensed immediately, and Adrian held up his hands. Not that kind of proposition. I need an executive assistant. He gestured to an empty desk visible through the glass wall of his office. My last one quit 2 weeks ago and HR hasn't found a suitable replacement. The position comes with a competitive salary, full benefits, and most importantly, a contract that would make it very difficult for your stepfather or Henderson to touch you legally. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. You're offering me a job? I'm a waitress. I don't have a college degree. I don't know the first thing about being an executive assistant. You're a single mother who's managed to support herself and her daughter while under immense pressure. That shows resourcefulness, determination, and strength, qualities I value more than a degree. His eyes softened. Besides, after that kiss, I think you owe me at least a job interview. Sarah felt her cheeks flush at the reminder. About that. I'm really sorry. I was desperate and I wasn't exactly complaining, Adrian interrupted, with a slight smile that made her heart skip. Look, take tonight to think about it. I'm putting you and Emma up in the corporate apartment on the 15th floor. It's secure, and my personal security team will ensure no one bothers you. As if on cue, a gentle knock came at the door, and a woman in a sleek suit entered. The apartment is ready, Mr. Blackwood, and we've arranged for someone to pick up Ms. Mitchell's daughter from her emergency contacts address. Sarah jumped to her feet. How did you... I had my team do a quick background check while we were talking, Adrian explained. Standard procedure. They'll bring Emma here with her favorite stuffed animal, the purple elephant, right? And whatever else she needs for the night. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks before she could stop them. No one had ever taken care of her like this, anticipated her needs, thought about her daughter's comfort. It was overwhelming. Adrian stepped closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder as if unsure whether to comfort her. Sarah, The office door burst open, and Theodore Wagner stormed in, his face red with rage. You can't hide her from me, he shouted. I don't care who you are, Blackwood. She's my stepdaughter, and she's going to do what's best for this family. Sarah instinctively stepped back, but Adrian moved in front of her, his entire demeanor changing from gentle CEO to immovable force. Mr. Wagner, he said, his voice cutting like steel, you're trespassing. Leave now or I'll have you arrested. Wagner's eyes narrowed. You don't know what you're getting involved in, Blackwood. That girl comes with more trouble than she's worth. Ask her about the real reason her daughter's father left. Ask her about... Get out! Adrian's command was quiet, but so powerful that even Wagner took a step back. And if you ever come near Sarah or her daughter again, I will personally ensure that every business in this city knows exactly how you tried to sell your stepdaughter to cover your gambling debts. Wagner's face went from red to purple, But before he could respond, two security guards appeared and firmly escorted him out. As the door closed behind them, Sarah felt her legs give way. Adrian caught her before she could fall, his strong arms wrapping around her just as they had during their kiss. "It's okay," he murmured, holding her steady. "You're safe now." But as Sarah looked up into his concerned face, she wondered if she was safe at all from falling for him. 2 weeks into her new job as Adrian's executive assistant, Sarah was surprised by how naturally she'd fallen into the role. Her years of juggling waitressing jobs had taught her multitasking and people skills that proved invaluable in the corporate world. Emma had settled into the corporate apartment's second bedroom, delighted by the view and the building's rooftop garden, where Adrian had arranged for her to have a small plot of her own. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. It did on a rainy Tuesday morning, when Marcus Henderson himself walked into the office. Sarah was alone at her desk, Adrian away at a board meeting, when Henderson's expensive cologne announced his presence before she saw him. Her fingers froze over her keyboard. "Well, well," Henderson drawled, his silver hair immaculate as always. "Theodore said you'd found yourself a powerful protector, but I must admit I'm impressed." His cold eyes swept over her professional attire. "Playing secretary to stay out of my bed? How resourceful." "Mr. Henderson," Sarah kept her voice steady, her finger hovering over the panic button Adrian had installed under her desk. "You don't have an appointment." "I'm not here for an appointment, dear." Henderson placed a thick manila envelope on her desk. "I'm here to show you what your noble CEO is really up to." Sarah shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity and fear got the better of her. Inside were photos. Adrian meeting with her stepfather at a restaurant last month, long before she'd run into the building. Another showed Adrian outside Emma's old school. The timestamps proved these were taken weeks before their first encounter. "He knew exactly who you were when you kissed him," Henderson said softly, savoring her shock. "In fact, he'd been watching you for months. Ask yourself why a billionaire CEO was playing security guard on the floor where he knew you'd end up running." Sarah's world tilted on its axis. "You're lying." "Am I? Did you never wonder why he was so quick to help you? Why he had all your information ready? Why he just happened to have an opening for an executive assistant?" Henderson's smile was cruel. "Adrian Blackwood has been orchestrating this from the beginning. The question is, why?" Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for her phone, scrolling through her photos until she found one from Emma's 5th birthday party last year. There, in the background of a shot at the park, was a familiar figure she'd never noticed before. "Adrian. What does he want?" she whispered. "That's the interesting part." Henderson leaned closer. "It seems your daughter's father didn't just abandon you. According to my sources, he died in a car accident, an accident caused by one of Adrian Blackwood's automated driving systems when it was still in testing. The company buried the incident, paid off the right people. But your James Carter was employee number 47 at Nexus Technologies. He helped build the very system that killed him." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. James had never told her where he worked, had been secretive about his job. He'd only said he was working on something that would change the world. "Blackwood's been watching you out of guilt," Henderson continued, "setting up this elaborate scheme to play hero, probably to ease his conscience. Did you really think someone like him would be interested in someone like you?" The office door opened, and Adrian walked in, stopping short at the scene before him. "Sarah?" His eyes darted between her and Henderson, concern etched on his face. The same concern she'd seen that first night, concern she now realized might have been carefully rehearsed. "Is it true?" Sarah stood, the photos clutched in her hand. "Did you know who I was before I ran into this building? Did you know about James?" Adrian's silence was answer enough. "Mr. Blackwood has a meeting in 5 minutes, Sarah said to Henderson, her voice mechanical. "As I said, you don't have an appointment." "Sarah, please," Adrian started, but she cut him off. "I'll have my desk cleared out by lunch." She grabbed her purse, unable to look at either man. "Emma and I will be out of the apartment by tonight." "You can't leave." Adrian's voice held an edge of panic she'd never heard before. "Sarah, you don't understand. Henderson is playing me? Like you did?" She finally met his eyes, letting him see her pain. At least, Henderson never pretended to care. She walked out of the office, her heels clicking against the marble floors that had once seemed so promising. Behind her, she heard the distinct sound of a fist hitting a desk, followed by Adrian's voice harder than she'd ever heard it. "What did you tell her?" Sarah made it to the elevator before the tears started. She had to get Emma, had to run again. But where? Henderson would find her if she went back to her old life. Adrian would find her if she stayed in the city. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The truth about James's death isn't what you think. Meet me in the parking garage, level B3, come alone." Sarah stared at the message, her heart pounding. Every instinct told her it was a trap. But if there was even a chance of learning the truth about James's death, about why Adrian had really entered her life. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. Sarah stepped out, her footsteps echoing in the concrete structure. A figure stood in the shadows near a black SUV. "Hello?" Sarah called out, her voice shaking. The figure stepped into the light and Sarah gasped. It wasn't Henderson or Adrian, it was James. Sarah's knees buckled as she stared at the ghost before her. James looked exactly as she remembered, the same unruly brown hair, the same kind eyes. But there was something different about him, a hardness that hadn't been there before. "This is impossible," she whispered. "You died. There was a funeral." "An empty casket," James said softly. "The accident was real, Sarah, but I survived. Adrian Blackwood saved my life that night." Footsteps echoed through the garage. Adrian emerged from the stairwell, his tie loosened and his usually perfect hair disheveled. "I told you to wait," he said to James, but there was no real anger in his voice. "She deserved to know sooner," James replied. "We've let Henderson manipulate this situation for too long." Sarah's head spun as she looked between the two men. "Will someone please tell me what's going on?" Adrian stepped forward, his eyes pleading. The automated driving system didn't kill James, it saved him. The accident was staged because James had uncovered something in Nexus Technologies' code, a backdoor that Henderson and his tech company had planted. They were trying to steal our patents, but they were also planning something bigger. Henderson's company wasn't just after real estate, James continued. They were developing an AI system that could manipulate financial markets, control automated systems, even influence election results. I found the code, but I also found out they'd killed 3 other programmers who'd gotten too close to the truth. "So we faked James's death," Adrian said. "Gave him a new identity, kept him safe while we gathered evidence. But Henderson somehow found out he was alive. That's when they approached your stepfather, used his gambling debts to set up the arranged marriage. They wanted leverage." Sarah's mind raced, putting the pieces together. "You've been watching me to keep me safe, to keep Emma safe?" "At first," Adrian admitted. "But then I actually got to know you through surveillance and background checks. I saw how hard you worked, how much you loved Emma, how you never gave up despite everything life threw at you. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now realized was genuine nervousness. "I fell in love with you long before you kissed me in that hallway." James stepped forward, taking Sarah's hand. "I wanted to come back so many times, Sarah, but it would have put you and Emma in danger. Adrian promised to protect you both, and he has. He's a good man." "The evidence is ready," Adrian said. "Henderson's here because we finally have everything we need to take him down. The FBI is moving in as we speak." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. James squeezed Sarah's hand. "I need to go. I'm still technically in witness protection until this is over." He smiled sadly. "Emma's so beautiful, Sarah. You've done an amazing job with her, but she deserves the chance to have a real father in her life, even if it's not me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as James pulled her into a gentle hug. "Be happy," he whispered in her ear. "Adrian loves you more than I ever could. I was young and scared when Emma was coming. He's the kind of man who chooses to love, who fights for what matters." With a final squeeze, James disappeared into the shadows of the garage. Above them, they could hear commotion as FBI agents presumably moved through the building. But in the dim light of the parking garage, time seemed to stand still as Sarah turned to face Adrian. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" she asked. "I wanted to. Every day." Adrian took a step closer. "But I also wanted you to have the chance to know me as just a man, not as someone who held the keys to your past. I wanted your feelings to be real, not born from gratitude or obligation." "The kiss," Sarah said, remembering that desperate moment. "You knew I would run to that exit." Adrian's lips curved into a smile. "I hoped. I'd planned to introduce myself normally the next day. find some way to offer you a job. But then you kissed me and all my carefully laid plans went out the window. I couldn't think straight for days. Sarah closed the distance between them, placing her hand on his chest. She could feel his heart racing beneath her palm. And now? Can you think straight now? No, he murmured, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. I don't think I ever will again. Sarah, I know this is complicated. I know you might need time to process everything, but I love you. I love Emma. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love is real. The sound of footsteps and voices grew closer. Soon they would have to deal with the FBI, with Henderson's arrest, with all the complications that would come from exposing a major corporate conspiracy. But for now, Sarah rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to Adrian's. Unlike their first kiss, born of desperation and deception, this one was soft and sure. Adrian's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer as he deepened the kiss. Sarah felt the last pieces of her heart falling into place. When they finally parted, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "Does this mean you'll keep the job?" he asked, a hint of his usual playfulness returning. Sarah laughed, the sound echoing in the concrete structure. "I think dating my boss might be against company policy." "I guess I'll have to marry you then," Adrian said, his tone light but his eyes serious. "For the sake of HR compliance, of course." "Of course," Sarah agreed, smiling through her tears. "But first, you have to help me explain to Emma why the nice man who's been teaching her about gardening on the roof is actually her mum's billionaire boss, who's been secretly protecting us from an evil corporation." Adrian winced. "Maybe we start with, sometimes people who love each other have to keep secrets to keep each other safe, and work our way up to the billionaire part?" "We'll figure it out together," Sarah said, taking his hand as FBI agents began flooding the garage. "After all, I'm pretty good at handling complicated situations. I once kissed a security guard to escape an arranged marriage." "Really?" Adrian raised an eyebrow. "How did that work out?" Sarah squeezed his hand. "Better than I ever could have imagined." Above them, the sun broke through the clouds, sending shafts of light through the garage's ventilation shafts. Sarah thought about that desperate woman who had run through the building just weeks ago, looking for escape. She had found so much more. She had found her way home.